knitter, a stargazer, a rambler, a thinker, a listener, a wanderer, a schemer, and a believer. Her infectious warmth and genuine nature fostered countless meaningful relationships with both children and adults. Whether engaging with kids at family gatherings, conducting home visits as a social worker, inspiring campers and staff at Camp About Face, or enjoying card games at a coffee shop, Melissa's presence brought comfort and joy to those around her. Melissa was preceded in death by her grandparents, Keith LeBaron and Dolly and Paul Siemens. She is survived by her beloved grandmother, Joanne LeBaron, her parents, Brian, Kathy LeBaron, and Pamela Thomas Vogely Siemens. Melissa also leaves behind her siblings, Scott, Bradley, Kevin LeBaron, Ben Colby, step-siblings Keith and Katie Colby, Leah and Renee Vogely, Emily Cole Duvall, Amanda, Brad Albo, and Carla Irv Bitter. Her aunts Linda LeBaron, Sue Gullickson, and Sally Al Gray. She was cherished by numerous cousins, as well as 6 nieces and 8 nephews, and best friends, Brad Williams and Megan Blydorn. One of Melissa's greatest joys in life was her involvement with Camp About Face at Bradford Woods, Indiana. This camp and outreach program of Riley's Children's Hospital, Indiana University, catered to individuals with craniofacial anomalies. Melissa spent most of her summers here, initially as a camper in her childhood and later as a camp counselor, program staff member, and mentor. Through her dedicated service, she touched the lives of hundreds of children, parents, and staff, bringing encouragement and inspiration to all. In memory of Melissa Joy LeBaron, donations can be made to support Camp About Face. Contributions can be made online through Indiana University's donation page at Riley's Children's Foundation in honor of Mel, and that it should be allocated to Camp About Face. Wow. What more does somebody say? Little, beautifully written obituary that encapsulated so much of her life. What a life she lived, how much she impacted, how many people she impacted at her young age. I don't know many people that could say that at 40, have that type of a relational resume. It's amazing. All of you here and those watching live have a unique perspective on this amazing human that Mel LeBaron was to you personally. You all have unique stories, situations that will live forever in your mind with this beautiful girl. We hurt collectively today because of the love we had for her and have. There is no easy way around this. When you love deeply, you feel deeply the loss attached to that experience. Sadly, we often go through life taking the ones we love for granted, assuming they'll always be there. But the truth is, that's not true. We will all die and leave those we love physically, and the extent to that we cared is often relative to the pain that we feel in times like this, and it's truly a shock to our system. It needs to be said here that as a tiny baby born with this deformity, Mel was not born into a vacuum. She was born into an amazing family who relished, nurtured, and fiercely protected her right to have a beautiful, amazing life in spite of the challenge she faced physically. They gave her a confidence and a security that allowed her to bloom, blossom, and reach goals and achieve so many things others her age have not. As a creative, Mel was so multifaceted. I'm just blown away at the presentation out there. I didn't realize what a incredible artist in a drawing vernacular that she was. That portrait out there is incredible. Her skills included writing, knitting. She was a voracious knitter, a beautiful knitter, and with actual challenges to do that. It's incredible how she did that. She was a reader, a thinker, and she ruminated often. Mel ran deep. Inherent in her soul was an endless train of thought, questions, opinions, theories, ideas, and dreams. A treasure trove of love and goodness and hope. As a cancer survivor, she embraced the gifts that cancer gave her. Yes, cancer can give you gifts. I know this. She accepted the lit fire underneath her feet that forced her to acknowledge the precious gift of borrowed time. This is a gift we all have. That's all any of us have. But a fateful diagnosis like that wakes you up to the truth that she couldn't afford to waste a second of this lottery win she got called an extended life. Mel literally lived her best life even after cancer. She was a caregiver of others. She finished grad school, prepared for her dream job, and then achieved her dream job. All of these things many people just think about doing. I love that in our meeting discussing this service, someone asked about what her favorite flower was. Her mama said she didn't know of any preference of a flower, but she knew that Mel loved willow trees. As I was preparing this message, I just got stuck on that idea of a willow tree, and I found out so many beautiful things about willow trees. Did you know the willow tree has a deep meaning that people attach to it? People that love willow trees love them for a reason. As I researched it, I was not surprised this tree resonated with her. Bear with me as I share some of the meanings so you can be reminded of her every time you see one. The willow tree is seen by many as an inspiring symbol of the human's capability to endure hardship and loss. Due to its long life and the ease of which new trees can be rooted from its cuttings, even in challenging conditions, it is seen as a symbol of survival. Willow trees bend to the ground, they do not break. And one of its greatest traits is flexibility. The willow tree tells us to adjust to life's changes rather than fight them. Another powerful metaphor is the willow tree's ability to not only survive, but to thrive in challenging conditions. The willow tree finds its strength, stability, and structure from its trunk. This trunk is a foundation that allows it to stand firm in storms. Yet the branches, by their extension, are flexible and strong, surrendering to the wind without being destroyed. The leaves that form on these branches represent the growth we experience in difficult times. And finally, the large tent this type of tree creates is big enough to welcome all. It beckons you to come under it and find shelter. This metaphor of a willow tree that Mel loved gives us all a sense of hope, belonging, and love against all that life has to throw at us. I believe the trunk represents Mel's family, the foundation of love and strength and resilience they've given her since she was born. The branches represent the challenges and the hurdles she gloriously jumped over and over again. And finally, the leaves are the precious fruit that will remain long, many years after her body has left us. All of this together creates a beautiful canopy of a cool, shaded area that has room for all, no matter what. Every single one of you. The program says I'm going to read a poem called The Lady of Shalott. I looked up the poem. It's very long, and it's very deep and meaningful. And I understood they read it in Minneapolis at a Melibration, which I thought was the greatest name. It has a powerful meaning. I encourage you all to Google it and find it out. I am not smart enough on this short enough a notice to make it be as powerful as it could be. So I encourage you to read Mel's favorite poem. But as I was doing this sermon last night, or the other day, I wanted to find another one, and she appreciated classic literature. So I found a beautiful poem that resonated with me about her life by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So it's not Alfred Lloyd Tennyson, but we're close. Maybe not that close, I don't know. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of the intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that one life has breathed easier because you lived here. This is what it means to have succeeded. All of those things are true of Mel LeBaron. Every single one of them. All of us who loved her breathed easier because of knowing her. And she made an impact that you will never forget. And I'm so thankful for that and for her.
Posting on Facebook again soon. Well, as we gather together, of course, as you know, I'm a preacher. And so it's going to be hard. I'll try to do it in less than 30 minutes. No, I won't do that long. And so I'm going to put on somebody from the down in Bradford Woods, they brought me like a tie clip. It says Mel on it, and maybe one of those folks can explain this in a few minutes. I'm going to ask you, you can be thinking about how you can add to the eulogy here in a few minutes. I'm going to ask for open floor, and I'm going to want some of you to please add to the message by sharing a thought, a memory, a story about Mel here in a few minutes. But first I wanted to share a couple of reflections. First of all, in thinking about this experience, these kind of things are difficult when someone you love or know passes all too soon. As she even said on her last day, it's not fair. She said it, she was scared. She was in pain. Not to be solemn, but to be honest. We feel this, at least emotionally, spiritually, in our soul, when we encounter our feelings we have about Mel. And of course, this reminds me of another great, even the greatest figure, so to speak, in history, Jesus Christ. Many of you know his story well, and I'm not going to rehearse the whole story, but we know of a rabbi that did tremendous things, taught people that spent time not with all the religious people. In fact, he got into a lot of trouble with the religious people, confronting the establishment, including people that were unclean and unwanted. Jesus reached out to those that were in the margins, the tax collectors, the sinners, the criminals, the unclean, untouchables. These were the kind of people, these were Mel's kind of people. Mel reached out to the people, especially that felt left out, that felt different. Now, of course, we're in the midst of the modern day event of Pride Month, and Mel was fully inclusive in regards to the LGBTQ issues and so on, but her inclusion was far beyond that. Her inclusion was of people that were markedly different. Some of them, by their physical anomalies, such as she had been, born with Down syndrome, with, as her brother Brad pointed out, she's 1 in 26 million. There's so few of these people that have survived with this syndrome to begin with, about 300 in the world, and she was one of them. And sometimes she would say it made her a unicorn, someone unique and special, and I think magical. Once I'd like to read a quote from Facebook of our organist, and once I read this quote from our organist, Steve McMillan, I knew I had to get Steve. Let me turn this mic off here. Thank you. I knew I had to get Steve to come and play. He wrote this in his Facebook post. Mel was kind and easy to talk to. She and I chatted now and then as coffee house regulars. Imagine Mel being in a coffee house. Social work seemed like the ideal arena for her, but clearly she made places for herself all through life. Her outward appearance may have inspired an impulse in others to help her feel comforted and at ease. But she was the one who always left others feeling better for having met her. May her memory be eternal. Steve McMillan. How many of you were people that were touched by Mel? Yes. And I know I've spoken to some of you individually, that you were touched because you were afraid, or you were different, or you had some failures, or some obstacles, some broken relationships, broken families, broken jobs and careers. And yet, Mel reached out to you, even though, she has, one of the things I want to ask is about nicknames. One of her nicknames was Mouse. What are some of the other nicknames some of you know her by? Mel? Mello? Pikachu? What's that? Meltron 3030? Mel Bell? Melly? Melly? What was that? Melly Mel, and perhaps the one she hated the most. Melissa. Being one of the two people responsible for naming her, she didn't always take so kindly. That's Mel, Dad. But again, in theological reflection, there's much that can be said about faith. It's a controversial topic, and unfortunately, unfortunately, in some circles in our country, has been co-opted by extremists and nationalists, and that was much to the disappointment of Melissa. That wasn't the kind of in-your-face fundamentalism kind of Christian that Melissa was. Melissa was more of the deeds and statements that Jesus would make. For Jesus, he met with his disciples, his group of friends, and they were not ready for him to go. But in the day before that Jesus died, he told his friends, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. Now that is the hallmark of what a true believer is. Whatever your banner is, of course mine's Methodist, some of you, your banner is Buddhism. There's people in Africa and Asia that I know that are Muslims that are praying for us. There's others that are skeptics and see that there's just good life here on earth. However you want to understand it, the core of it is love. And that is what Melissa embodied. And so there's been a lot of fuss in the news lately about somebody that was hiding away boxes in their house. I don't know if you caught that in the news. But my nieces were going through some of my daughter's things that were put in storage at my mother's house, as we had a month or so ago expected that she would be moving to Indianapolis shortly. But we came across a box of documents. Now, these aren't top secret, okay? But they contain a lot of things. And of course, she made this box. It's got characters from old musicals, from the classic golden era of cinema that she put around on them. She would like to go to old movies. She would watch them with my mother at home. Yeah, you recognize some of those, Mom. They would go down to the Lindo Theater here in Freeport together to watch these. We would have a series of old movies, and they enjoyed that. She loved the arts. And as I went through the box, it's way too numerous to mention, and I didn't find anything incriminating in here, by the way. She wouldn't keep that. Even if there was goods on you, Mel wouldn't be the kind of person to keep that. Because she was kind, loving, forgiving, brought healing to many. Even just by listening to their stories. A few of the things, though, that I wanted to recount is someone named Milo wrote, "You're awesome, dedicated, and knew how to power through to get it done," said Milo. I found, of course, we, as a family, we had an occasion years ago to go to Chicago for the Addams Family, a Broadway-type production. We got some autographs on it. I can't read them, whoever they are. I guess you get rich and famous, you can squiggle your name. But we enjoyed theater together as a family and with many friends. And just a couple of statements. This is from Grammy and Grandpa, pardon me if I mispronounce this, Shapler. Did I say that right, Dan? They had made sent along a prayer shawl for Mel because of the medical challenges she was facing in 2014. And as Kathy alluded to, we see some examples of shawls that Melissa knitted here on the altar rails, and others out in the foyer. I encourage you to look at it if you haven't seen. Now, Melissa wasn't a person that had normal digits like you and I. Part of her anomaly included very small fingers, and one of her thumbs became opposable after a surgery as a child. But she had challenged hands as well as challenged hearing, challenged speech. But yet, she is an avid knitter. In fact, the day before she passed away, myself, Melissa, one of her best friends, Brad, we went to the best kind of shop, I suppose, for Mel you could have is a combination of a coffee shop and a yarn shop in one building. And we sat and Brad helped her figure out a color palette. We bought yarn and so on for a project that sadly is never to be done. And that is part of the hardship we experience as we gather together, these persons in this room today. None of us expected to be here a month ago. I certainly didn't, and neither did you. And these disciples, these followers of Jesus, well, they didn't expect this young rabbi, this up-and-coming popular preacher, to suddenly find a tragic fate in being unjustly brought to trial and tortured and crucified. So, not that Mel is Jesus or anything, although I do think she's kind of a saint. We come to grips with the fact that in life, things are, as Mel said in her last day, it's not fair. These are grievous things for the soul to consider. But through it all, somehow we find comfort in love, comfort in faith, comfort in family, comfort in friends to see us through. And in the Christian tradition, one of the notions we have is that although Jesus died, rose again, and left, he sent what we call the Holy Spirit or the Comforter, someone to remind us of the things that Jesus said and taught. It's another way of seeing memories. So now that Mel is passed from our midst, we have comfort from the memories we share. And so I'd encourage you to remember the things. I'm just going to share a couple memories that I found in the document box. Dear Mel, I am so glad to have had you as a friend for so long. You mean so much to me. You're a great person. Don't sell yourself short just because you are short. Just kidding. Not really. Anyway, have a very Merry Christmas. Simply signed, B. And there's so many that it's beyond the time I have to say them all. But things that were said, you bring such energy and positivity to the evening staff. I appreciate you. My youth already paid its due to Bradford Woods, my neverland of unflagging gracefully. You know, in the last moments or hours of Mel's life, she was suffering pain. Hard to see and much harder to know. One of the things that would give her comfort from the pain is to have her tell me about the vistas and scenes of Bradford Woods, the place where, since she was a child, every summer she would go, as mentioned in the obituary, as a camper, then as a counselor, then as a staff member, and at least what could have been a social work job working with those campers and things. But this was her happy place, her heaven on earth that she enjoyed. And so I would like to ask, is there anybody with us here that represents that part of her life, and if you would like to share a little testimony about Bradford Woods? This is your moment. No pressure, just now. Okay, over here. Okay. Let's see. Would you like to just have the mic there? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin. I was a camper with Mel when we were kids, and I was looking forward to getting ready to work with her in her job at Riley as a social worker. But most importantly, I knew her through camp, and I think there was a question about the meaning behind the clothespins. So someone has to tell you about the clothespin. We had a clothespin that said Merv on it every summer at camp when we were kids. And we would Merv each other. We would clip it to each other secretly throughout the day. And whoever had Merv on them at the end of the day, they had to perform some sort of dare or challenge that the rest of the group decided on. I think this evolved over time, and we had another clothespin that maybe had Steve written on it. I don't know, which is ironic. I don't know where we came up with Steve, but we came up with Steve, and that person got to decide, what the challenge was or the dare that the person had to do with Merv at the end of the day. So I was just sitting here thinking about how ironic it is that we have these. I feel like in her passing, Mel has Merved all of us with a challenge to continue her legacy and her memory, in all the different aspects of life. And I know camp was just one of them, but I know it was really important to her. And I want you all to know how special she was to camp. We loved her a lot. And I think Eli said it best the other day on Facebook that she was a thread that tied 30 plus years of campers together at Camp About Face. She was the one person who did that. And she had such a knack and such a gift for connecting with all the younger campers. I think she could have been 75 years old and she still would have connected with all of the campers at camp. That would have been 8 years old. I don't know what it was, but she was phenomenal at doing that. So I just want to thank you all for sharing her with us every summer. She was beautiful and beloved, and we're going to miss her greatly. So thank you.
Miss?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm also from camp, obviously, sporting the clothespin. It was Merv and Marvin until Steve left camp, and then in his legacy, we renamed Marvin Steve. I couldn't write Fun Sucker on a clothespin. He was the one who took away all the digital cameras at midnight when the flashes were going off incessantly. So I was doing great until you read the card that said Neverland, because I have a knack of forcing people from Indiana and Ohio to get together because camp is more regional now. And we had a reunion for Mel's birthday at my aunt's house, and there have been some pictures from it. We had like cake wars, and we all baked cakes. We had birthday cakes all weekend. But there's a song called Lost Boy, and it had just come out before we had that weekend retreat, and that was the year we nicknamed Camp Neverland, like officially amongst us alumni who were there that weekend. And it was one of those things where like, it was also like National Siblings Weekend, like a couple weeks later, and Mel had taken these pictures of all of us together, just like reminiscing, going through camp photo albums on Facebook. And, you know, it's one of those things where she is literally the thread through 30 years worth of campers. And like, you multiply that by, you know, 30-ish campers a year, and like, that's just a small fragment of all the people that she touched. And, you know, she always assigned herself to the boys' cabin, which I was always upset about. But, you know, I understand it's a little less drama, got it. But I would always sneak out in the middle of the night from the cabin. We would set up assigned times, and we would either raid the cafeteria for chocolate milk, or we would skip the chocolate milk and just sit out under the stars and talk. And those are like some of my fondest memories. Just quiet time with Mel, because then you could unpack and unload. And she had a knack of being able to just talk to people. And it was really rare that she ever unloaded on me. And I will treasure those moments when she chose to open up and talk to me about her life, because so often she was giving advice and guidance to everybody else, and I was so excited for her to be able to come home and be able to be a social worker with all of us. And I'm really happy that she'll be at camp this year, just not in the way any of us wanted yet. So I'm so grateful that we had that time with her, though. She's definitely cherished.
From that chapter of her life, is there anyone else from the, I'll call it the Indiana chapter? Now, she had her last act, so to speak, was in Minneapolis. Now, last weekend on Sunday, we had a Mel LeBaron. That was really a catchy one there, Mitch. In fact, just to brag on the organizer, Mitch, he wrote in a card. This was a happy birthday Mel card. I love you, you're my hero, my biggie and support, last fear, and truly are one of a kind. Love, Mitchell. Mitchell was a friend of Mel's, and indeed I was just overwhelmed with the number of connections and friends that Mel made in Minneapolis, St. Paul, through grad school, through her working with the Washburn Children's Center, and beyond that, as a good, reminds me again of the Jesus life. She was out seeing people in the coffee shops, the yarn stores, and other places where she might go and just meet and greet people. Is there anyone from Minneapolis that'd like to share any word of testimony? I know we did that in our group last week. Is there any? Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Levinger, and I met Mel a little over 6 years ago in Minneapolis. I had the pleasure of working with her at Restorative Justice Community Action, which was a center for basically diverting youth away from jails or away from deportation and into plans that we can best utilize their interests. She really motivated me in that work, because that was obviously what she was best at, is finding people's skills and talents and helping them find avenues to get into that work, instead of maybe some of the negative stuff that people do to cope. And it was also a very important time in my life, because at that time I had found out that my father had terminal cancer and was gonna pass within that same year. And I don't think Mel will ever understand how much that meant to me, that she was there for me as a wonderful friend, supported me. As a cancer survivor, she kind of knew some things that could school me on it, so it was very helpful to have her as a friend in that way. And just as a fellow creative, she really inspired me to want to write again. I like to write, but I'd kind of put that on hiatus for some years. And she was a person who was just a lot of fun to take to nature spots. So I just really wanted to share how many different places I got to go in Minneapolis with her. Underneath every bridge that you can possibly see, if there was some cool graffiti, we were checking it out. And specifically, I can last remember that I got to go to a really beautiful like crane sanctuary with her in Richfield, Minnesota. And she just really embodies nature. Like her calmness is a river, you know, her calmness is a lake. Her ability to listen to you is like the trees in a forest. And so my happy place just kind of was anywhere where Mel was. And I just want to inspire everybody to take Mel with you to your happy places because she is there. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I'm Mitchell Hansen. I was really lucky because I was kind of able to be with Mel from grad school, and then we did the same internship, and then she got her first job, and I was like, nah, she didn't really like it, and I was like, okay, you should come work with us instead. So I was able to be around her like all the time, so it was really, really lucky. And I don't know how, like, you know, Mel was in other, you know, other circles and stuff, but like when we first met Mel, she was really shy, you know, and she would like kind of shuffle around like she would do, you know, like one of her melanisms, you know, like she had, you know, and then just over time, she just became sassy and cocky as hell. And then she became what I call Rooster Mel, where she would just kind of, and just really throw it out there. And I just thought that was so awesome, you know, from going, yeah, just like, you know, uncomfortable. And then she met my friend Mark and some other people. And then she was hanging out with all my friends way more than me, making me look bad. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, hanging out with your other friend. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, cool. But yeah, I feel very blessed. And, you know, she was very loved in the Twin Cities. And, yeah, you know, we had a going away party for her and everything too, and it was really, we played bags, and I don't know if everyone knows this, probably does, but she's competitive, is super competitive, like ridiculously competitive. And yeah, just anytime you're playing bags, please think of Mel, because we taught her how to play, and then I never beat her ever. Same thing with, that's just how she was. Like, she was so determined with everything. Even like throwing a frisbee, like I taught her that, and then she almost beat me in that. And I'm like, I gotta stop teaching you things. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, she was like a big, you know, like a big sister to me. Like she was a lot of people. It could go on for hours, but I know one thing I'll never forget is like her laugh and just that little like, huh, like, you know, like that she did. You know, sometimes you worry about like maybe like, you know, forgetting those things, but I just know that's not going to happen. Just because it was just, they're so powerful and the melanisms. But I encourage you to keep using, you know, changing anything that starts with, you know, EL, and just add an M because it's fun.
Thank you, Mitch. And is there anyone else that has anything you'd like to share with us from any time, place, or situation? I know public speaking is one of people's top fears, but Butch, we got to know him at the Florence United Methodist Church. Butch?
I thought I'd come up here so everybody didn't have to turn their neck, get a kink in it, because I know how terrible that is with a broken neck. This young lady I knew over 30 years ago. My wife and I were the youth leaders at our church, Sunday school teachers, and we can learn a great lesson from this young, powerful woman. God gives each of us a gift. This woman used her gifts way beyond 100%. If we could do one half of what she does, she never looked back. Just everything was forward, everything was positive. She took all, like Brian said, she took all those things that we think are problems, and she praised God for them. And that's one of the things the Bible says. Praise God in all things and in all situations. She was able to do that, even in her diversity. And so I just wanted to say that I hadn't seen her for probably 30 years and haven't. But she has definitely come from that little bud in the willow tree to a full, complete tree. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing, Butch. Again, is there anyone else before we move on? Well, I'd encourage you as we continue to mix, we'll be having a lunch that'll be served over in Fellowship Hall after the service. I encourage you to share stories with one another. And you want to have something to say here, Kurt? Okay. He's getting warnings from
I
the
got a
family.
live mic now. Is it on? Hey?
You're on.
Anyhow, I'm really nobody in that, but when I met Mel and that,
Hold it closer to your mouth. There you go.
when I met Mel, I was explained that both of the bad genes got together and they made Mel, and how our Father took both of those bads and made it great. And I'll see you later, Mel.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes. Mary. My niece. One of my nieces, I should say. Go ahead. Can you pass that to her?
Hi, I'm one of the California cousins. I don't know if you've heard about us, but I just wanted to say that I found these beautiful letters that Mel wrote for us. She had a box at her house, and it was the Mel box, we called it, and she kept it in my sister's room, and the day that we planned to come out here to see her, we found the box, and in the box were letters from her to my son, Owen. I did not know they were there, but they were extremely special letters, and I just wanted to read a little bit of one of the letters, and you guys are all welcome to look at them. It's extremely special to have something of Mel's physically handwritten. Just be with it and read it and just experience the level of writing that she had. So can I read this, baby? Thank you. There was just a, I don't know how to explain it, but the writing of which the style of which she wrote about my family, the things that she saw that I didn't notice or that I didn't realize, it was just amazing to see that she caught those little details. It says, "The love your family has for you is so evident, and I am so happy you are protected and nurtured. You and your mama snuggle, and you give little kisses to her, and it's adorable to see. You still don't know my name yet, but as I only make an appearance once a year or so, I don't take offense. When you're older and more independent, maybe in 5 years, I plan on spending time with you to teach you fun card games and to hang out in general. I can't wait. Dear Owen, it's an honor and a joy to witness you grow into a lovely human. I love you lots. Love, Mello." These are extremely special, and I encourage anybody who wants to look at them. It's really beautiful to see all the things she wrote about. And I really appreciate her doing that. So I just want to say thank you, Mel, for leaving these for me. I'm going to cherish them forever.
Thanks for sharing, Mary. Oh, I'm sorry. Scott. Her oldest, next closest brother there, the oldest son.
Yeah, now sadly the oldest. It's going to be kind of off the cuff. It's just she was always just kind of just in motion. She started off, with a handicap, didn't care, had me as a brother, didn't care any less. I'd wake her up in the morning just to annoy her. She'd get me back. And then move on. And she'd set her eyes to something. She'd reach out. If she couldn't get it in the first reach, she'd figure out what she needed to do to get it. She was an awe-inspiring dynamo of just determination. I hesitate to say courage, because that implies that she thought there was anything to be courageous about it. She just did. That's the thing we're all going to probably miss the most. It's like, there's the old joke of, don't complain about things because somebody always has it worse. And I guess for me, I always had my sister to look at and realize my situation wasn't that dire, but that hardly was ever the thing I thought about. It's just the fact that, here I am, able-bodied, lazing about in front of my computer while my sister's going out about between 3 different states at any instantaneous moment. How does she do it? I'm going to miss that. We're all going to miss that. But I better hand this off before I completely break down. I'm sorry.
Thanks for sharing, Scott. Anyone else? Don't want to leave anybody out. Okay. Well, next then, let me just close with a couple quick remarks. Many of you have seen the picture that her stepfather has made that's out, the life-size portrait I'm looking at out in the foyer. One of the things that you'll see on it, that's the Super Mel picture, we call it, is she has a cape. This is her cape. And one of the things that Jesus told his disciples was that he was going away, but they were to continue the momentum of following and loving and reaching out and bringing healing and helping to people. So as I think about this cape, I encourage you to take, metaphorically speaking, take this cape, you take this mantle, and you carry on this work that Mel has started. You carry on the love. You carry out the healing. You carry out the friendships. You carry out to talk to someone that's maybe a little different or a little lonely or left out. And do the work of God, the work of Mel in loving people. Several years back, Melissa and I had the opportunity to go to Miller Park in Milwaukee to see Paul McCartney, one of her favorite musicians, of course, from the Beatles. She had a very eclectic music interest. Most recently, she was looking forward to seeing BTS at the Lollapalooza this summer, the Korean singing pop group. But one of the things that Paul ends his concerts with these words, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. So that's my challenge for all of us, is to share the love that we felt, we experienced from Mel, and turn that around and share it with somebody else. And so, let us now take some time for reflection as the musicians come. And her cousin, John Gullickson, plays the trumpet. And as I mentioned, our organist, Steve McMillan, they're going to share a song, Vie Jesus, from Gabriel Farr's Requiem. Gentlemen.
Again, a reminder, if you would like to sign that picture, please sign in the back. And we're going to have a little dinner afterwards. We'd love for you to stay. I'd like to close in prayer. God, I thank you for this gift of Mel LeBaron that you gave to us. Scripture says that we were brought into the kingdom for such a time as this, and I thank you that she was brought into this time period, not 100 years ago, not 500 years ago, but now. I thank you she was brought into our atmospheres, our circle of influence, our lives. We're so grateful for that. And I ask that the lessons that she gave us would forever be emboldened in our hearts and minds. I thank you for your comforting presence, and I ask that it would be very real today as we continue to share about her life. Amen. There's a special video.
I just want to share one thing I found in the box. Be funky, be hot, dance, dance, dance. And so we're going to watch a postlude featuring Melissa in Shut Up and Dance. Shut up and dance with me. Of fellowship and sharing with one another. And again, we thank you for, I know a number of you have driven 5, 6, 7 hours to get here, and we're so happy that you've come to be part of Mel's family today here at the church. And so may her memory and God's Spirit bless and keep you. Amen.